Hey, it's March 26th, and we find ourselves in Joshua chapter 12. I'm sure you've probably forgotten things before. In fact, you've probably forgotten how many times you've forgotten things. But I'm sure a few of those times stand out, and they are usually followed by maybe it was a time that you forgot a test that you needed to study for. Maybe there was a big project that was due, and you totally forgot. Or maybe it was a friend's birthday that you always swore you'd never forget. Whatever it is, most of us, no, all of us have forgotten things. And like us, Israel forgot something very, very important: to obey all of God's commands, specifically the command to drive all of the inhabitants out of the promised land. The next 5 days on our Through the Bible reading schedule cover the rest of the book of Joshua, chapters 12 through 24. And it focuses on the division of the land to each of the 12 tribes. Now, we're not going to cover them every day, but some things to look for in the days ahead as you read are the fact that these were real people getting real land as an inheritance. As you read, you'll see all the different specific boundary markers and from here to there and all that. These were 12 tribes, 2.5 on the east side, 9.5 on the west side of the Jordan River, and they were inheriting actual land from God as He had promised. And in chapter 17, verses 3 through 6, we see something really pretty amazing, is that women actually inherit land along with the men. Now, this is hugely countercultural. But remember, Genesis chapters 1 and 2 state specifically that God created men and women equal in His image. And though culture may forget that fact, our Creator never does. And so they inherit land. You've also already seen the Anakim, or the sons of Anak. I said Anakim with an M, not Anakin with an N. But these are Goliath's ancestors. David and Goliath, really tall, strong people, great warriors because of their size and strength. The spies 40 years earlier that went in weren't lying about giants being in the land. That was no exaggeration. And we find in the book of Joshua there was actually quite a few of them. Now, if you want to have an idea of how big these guys were, do an image search on a guy by the name of Robert Wadlow. You'll get an idea of how tall the Anakim probably were compared to ordinary people. But Israel, all throughout the rest of the book, it's very clear they did not drive all the Canaanites out of the land. In fact, in chapter 13, verse 13, it says, "Yet the people of Israel did not drive out the Geshurites or the Maccathites, but they dwell in the midst of Israel to this day." Chapter 15, verse 16 says, "But the Jebusites, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the people of Judah could not drive out. So the Jebusites dwell with the people of Judah at Jerusalem to this day." Chapter 16, verse 10, however, they, the tribe of Ephraim, did not drive out the Canaanites who lived in Gezer. So the Canaanites have lived there in the midst of Ephraim to this day, but they've been forced into labor. That wasn't the command, was it? It was to kick them out, not to make them slaves. And so chapter 17, verse 12, that same idea follows. It says, "Yet the people of Manasseh could not take possession of the cities, but the Canaanites persisted in dwelling in that land. Now when the people of Israel grew strong, they put the Canaanites to forced labor, but did not utterly drive them out," which was the command. They compromised. They thought, that's good enough, there are slaves. So once all the land is divided up and the Israelites are settling down, there are still Canaanites in the land at the end of the book. As Joshua gives the people one final charge before he dies, he tells them in chapter 23, verses 5 through 8, "The Lord your God will push them back before you and drive them out of your sight, and you shall possess their land just as the Lord your God promised." But there was a condition. It says, "Therefore," in verse 6, "be very strong to keep and do all that is written in the book of the law of Moses, turning aside from it neither to the right hand nor to the left, that you may not mix with those nations remaining among you, or make mention of the names of their gods, or swear by them, or serve them, or bow down to them. But you shall cling to the Lord your God, just as you have done to this day." I want to make a really quick notice of the fact that it doesn't say that they weren't supposed to intermix with these other people groups because of their ethnicity, or it was all because of their serving false gods. God knew that if they were to intermarry with them, for some reason it's easier for a non-believer to pull the believer away from God than the other way around. And so it's for that reason, okay? Nothing to do with people groups or ethnicity, but all having to do with, do they worship God or not? And of course, we've already seen Rahab, and we've seen the Gibeonites. They joined the people of Israel, and there was no problem with those Canaanites becoming, intermarrying with the Israelites. It was the ones that were serving the false gods. So the Bible never in any place teaches what we call today racism. So, but sadly, Israel does turn their back on God, and they do worship the gods of the Canaanites. The book of Judges is complete with an account of the Israelites waffling back and forth between God and the Canaanite gods, and the results of them being enslaved by the people they did not kick out until God sends a judge to deliver them. And then they obey for a while, and then they turn back to the gods, and the whole cycle continues. So let's not forget that worshiping God out of thankfulness for saving us through faith in Jesus' death and resurrection for our forgiveness means that we live according to all of his words, not just the parts we want to. We don't compromise. We don't just do what's convenient, okay? All of it. One of the times I was in Pyology, I was reading their quote wall. I like to do that every time I go in. But one time I remember reading a quote from a woman by the name of Debbie Fields, who's actually the owner and founder of Mrs. Fields Cookies. You may have had one or 5,000 like I have. But her quote on the wall is, "Good enough never is." And she's right. She is absolutely right. Never settle for good enough when it comes to living for God. Christ died for us. The least we can do, according to Romans 12, is live for him. That is our spiritual act of worship. We need to hear Joshua's charge in chapter 24, verse 15, when he tells the Israelites, "Choose this day whom you will serve." And we need to respond like Joshua did. No matter what anyone else chooses, he says, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." My prayer is that we would never forget this. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you back here on March 30th.